All right. Roll call. Roll call. Okay, roll call. Nancy Burmeister.
Here.
Krista Stephenson. Yes. Lori Keeble.
Here.
Dustin.
Here.
Mike. Here. And Jen.
Yeah.
And Jeff here.
Move to approve the agenda as presented on board docs. Seconded.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I don't have any slips of paper, so grab any open comments from the audience. So we'll move to administrative reports. Who wants to go first? Whoever's brave. I can go. No, you're in the middle, you don't get to go first.
Busy time at the high school right now. Everybody's been by there. It's very crazy. But in general, we're still working on our schedule for next year. We did run into some issues with Skyward, trying to get our schedule done. But next week, we will start getting that officially run. The teachers know what they're going to be teaching. They just don't know exactly when those classes are going to run. So that's what we're trying to put together right now. We're continuing to meet with the counselors, our counselor at the moment. Our typical monthly meetings, interviews ongoing for different positions. Excited later that we got a couple on the agenda for the high school for this month. Let's see. Obviously, ongoing stuff regarding the construction, painting, building, everything that could possibly come up. I spent 4 hours looking at doors today, so that was a pretty exciting day for the day, but that's kind of how it's going to roll for the summer. The move at the end of the year went really well. The kids were amazing. A lot of the kids helping out, getting furniture moved to various different places. I just want to really give a shout out to the students that were there, especially that last week of school. They were great in being very helpful in us getting stuff taken care of. And then graduation went well. We had 50 seniors walk through the ceremony. Thanks to Jen and Lori for handing out diplomas this year. This year's class was great to work with. They're a really good group of kids.
How many juniors do we have becoming seniors?
Right around that same number. So, I think we were right around that 50 to 55 mark. If I remember right.
And when you meet with other conference principals to discuss concerns and ideas, what are the concerns?
Just anything that comes up, I'll just use vaping as an example. If one school is seeing they're having an issue with vaping, if one of those principals would put it on our agenda, we just kind of have a discussion of what different schools are doing with different issues. So learn that some schools are using vape detectors, some are not, and the ones that are using them, what issues are they seeing with having them? Those types of things. We'll talk about, testing protocols, what different schools are using to do the standardized testing as far as like ACT goes. Are they having other kids in the building? Are they not? Who's doing it computer-based? And if they are, what issues are they seeing versus the paper pencil? Just pretty much any issue that can come up in a building. It's nice to have that sounding board of, hey, what are other principals in our area seeing or dealing with?
Is that captured?
We have a monthly agenda that's shared amongst our conference principals.
I have a quick question. So the kids helped move everything out of the classrooms the last week of school.
Yeah.
What is the plan to move everything back into the classrooms?
Well, for the most part, most of the stuff going back in will be new stuff. A lot of it was moving furniture out, especially down to the gym that is now gone.
So that'll be put back
new-
in by.
I'm assuming the furniture people get that taken care of. And then there'll be some of the teachers and having the custodians there as soon as we get in the rooms, moving those teacher stuff back to their rooms.
Because the kids might not show up for the first couple days of school if they have to
No, actually,
move
I think,
everyone back in.
yeah, no, they shouldn't have to do that. We should have that all taken care of.
Okay.
How often does your conference principal meeting?
Once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah.
Could you include in your report just kind of a breakdown of what that
Absolutely.
was?
Yep. I'll write myself a note right now and try to do that in the future.
Anybody else?
spent the end of the year, it seemed like, quite a bit of time with IEP meetings, meeting with parents and staff members about certain kids for plans leading into next year. Looked at the attendance data, which will be in a later presentation. And then I guess, let's see, we had 8th grade promotion and high school graduation, which we touched on, but just wanted to offer a thank you to the middle school staff, in particular the 8th grade staff, and Mr. Leiball, Mrs. Kempin, Mr. Tyndall, Mr. Lamont, for all their work on 8th grade promotion. It was well attended, it seemed like, well received. We live streamed it. It's out there on the school district side. And then also a huge thank you to our custodial staff, because at graduation, there's a lot of setup, takedown that goes along with that, as well as Greg mentioned, just the end of the year being a little bit crazy and all the work there. So that was very helpful. And then met with the SRO, one of them anyway, just kind of talked about how we thought it went on the year, which will also be coming up later, and what we need to do in the future to help with that, any changes that need to be made. And then, let's see. I guess, yeah, any questions?
So I'll tag off of what Dustin said, but you guys put a line item in here. Spoke with various schools about certain violations to try to keep them more consistent. I like this idea of just, you don't have to occupy 100 pages with that, but there should be an attachment that says exactly what that is. We know we have a truancy problem. We have another couple issues, and rather than just having a sort of a 10,000 foot view, it would be better if we had more information. Okay. Good. Okay. Short timer.
What's that?
Short timer.
Yeah. All right. Well, as Troy said, I also spoke with the SRO officer. We'll kind of get into some of that later on about that, but felt that it went really well. The kids actually enjoyed it a lot down here for other reasons, but yeah, it went well. Summer school, obviously we started that off last week. Started out with roughly about 285 students signed up. At the elementary school alone, our first day we had probably just over 200. I don't know the exact number, but just over 200. And then with high school stuff that's going on, we're probably pretty close to that 285 mark. I would say we're a little more than what we had last year. So not sure if it's because we're at the elementary or not, just because we have a lot more kids. So hiring, been working on some hiring of our staff members, filling those positions. Hopefully we can have those all filled here in the next couple of weeks. End of the year also consists of the EGR report, which we'll go over, I think, after this year coming up. And one kind of big, project that we have going is we're updating the little playground out here to make it a little more user-friendly for the kids, and also if we ever have anybody in a wheelchair or anything, it will be like more wheelchair accessible. So we're with Head Start on getting that together, and it's in the process right now.
Cool. Anybody?
I was at a graduation party and there was a teacher there that worked in that school for 25 years. And she said that you were the best principal she'd ever worked for. So you can be missed.
So we can deny his resignation.
Yes.
That was my plan.
Good.
I'm not sure it's gonna stop him, but.
And she said you're strong suited with discipline, kids respect you, really care about you and the staff. Really, really treasure you.
Good luck. Thank you. Good luck.
Like my car said on my walk that day, I'm mad at you, but I understand.
You did.
Enjoy your good commute.
4 miles.
Okay, anybody else?
Okay, I do have
have some data in attachments on the dental clinic that we have at the elementary school and at the LMHS. Yeah, let's pull that up right away. So just a really nice little, data piece on what's really happening when we bring in that dental center to come into our building. So at the middle high school, we serve 68 students, put ceilings on 76 students, flooring washes 184, and preventative care that was provided was over $18,000. And that's at no cost. That's just a free clinic that we're providing in the school. And so then that's the middle school and the high school. Let's look at the elementary. And you can kind of just, same data, you can read through it. But it's just a really great program for kids, especially in a high poverty area. But really, this is for all kids, whether they have dental insurance or not. They can get served at the clinic in our school. So the teachers are super cooperative about it. I think the center loves coming to Ladysmith and, getting to know the kids and working with the kids, because there's just a really good partnership there. So I think that's a good thing that we're doing. And I already signed the MOU to continue that program for the following year. We did have principal interviews to replace Nathan. We did have strong candidates in the process. We are recommending Troy Gatto tonight for approval, and it was a unanimous decision by the committee. And our committee was 8 people, so we take a position like that very seriously. So we feel good about that whole process. Construction-wise, I'm gonna let the guys talk about it when they're on the agenda, but I just gave a quick little bulleted approach to what we're doing with construction, because that's really, what Greg and I are living and breathing every single day over at our building. So that's just a quick update, but we'll hear more in a minute. We celebrated some really wonderful retirements, and so I wanted to shout out to them in this end of the year time. We had Kathy Zook and Jeff Everhard and Jody Hoffenauer, Shelley Hansen, we had Linda Ment, Susan Doran. So we tried to do our very best to celebrate all of those staff members according to their wishes as well. Some like to be a little more public, some are more private, but there was a celebration of those students. Garage sale went well. We did get rid of a lot of furniture. It was free will, so I put in what we collected. We're gonna put that towards the track, $729. Not a lot of money, but we prevented it from going into a dumpster, a lot of it going into a dumpster, so we kind of were earth friendly, number one. And we hopefully provided some good materials for anybody that needed them. Graduation, I had 54 seniors down, so my data is different than Greg's,
I
but,
think we had 54 seniors, 51.
okay, very good, so we're both right. And then end of the year academic review, we have that coming up in the board meeting later on tonight, so I'm just gonna tell you that that was a big thing we worked on. We had 3 different huge leadership meetings in my office with all kinds of, viewpoints present, whether it be reading specialists, guidance counselors, principals, etc., to really look at the data and talk about what does it look like at the end of the year and how are we going to address some of those academic needs moving forward. The other thing that I bring to you quarterly is our social media report. I mean, you do pay for social media, so you do want to see how that service is doing for our district. So that report shows that we picked up 66 more followers on Facebook. Yeah, the total is there. We're reaching 26,000 people monthly. There's a nice chart in there. You can see like the 2 posts that got the most reaction was when we posted out to wear blue in honor of police officers, and when we were regional champs for the track team. And then there's a little bit of growth on Instagram, Twitter. Twitter's not a big thing for us, but there's, some followers. And then there's a lot of data underneath that you can kind of comb through, and if you have any questions about it. Those are all the schools that Social Schools for EDU serves, and so it shows you how we're comparing with those schools, how are we doing with our reach according to our population, and it all looks really good. Ladysmith looks good. This program is, having somebody help us with social media has been huge, especially with going into referendum and construction and just trying to keep communication lines open. But we use it to celebrate little things in our classroom, of course, too. Any questions for me?
Okay. Preliminary budget.
Okay, so I have Elise learn virtually, so Jen will connect her. And you're a little bit more familiar with Debbie's face, Debbie Burnett. But Debbie and Elise both kind of team up and help out the district office at Ladysmith. So tonight you get to hear from Elise. They make you put your name in. So do we have all of you?
Hi, I was muted.
Okay. Can you hear us okay, Elise? Elise?
Yeah, you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. And you can hear us?
I sure can. I was tuning in on Lumberjack TV as well, so this is a different viewpoint. So now I get this side and both sides of the room.
All right, so I was
Hello, everyone.
just introducing you, Elise, because they don't usually see your face. A lot of times they see Debbie. So, but Elise has been, like I said, partnering with us, with the district office all year. And so she is here to tell us a little bit about, the upcoming budget.
Yes, and I have been to the district a handful of times throughout the year, and I'm super excited for what's going on in Ladysmith. It's an exciting time. So I will kick it off, and Laura, be sure to let me know if I start to lag. As you know, my Teams was being a little fuzzy today, so I have a backup plan just in case, but. Alrighty, so let me share my screen here. So hopefully it's my presentation instead of my face on the big screen, which is always a little disconcerting when presenting virtually. You can see it okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you everybody for having me. We've got an exciting update for the budget, as the governor has, just as of last week, finalized key variables that are so important to our budget. So without further ado, we'll take it away here. We'll just review high level the school district's budget and timing of the final variables that allow us to pull it together. We are going to review those state budget proposals. They're all experts already, but just as a reminder, how schools are funded, a little school finance 101, and then go over some of those key preliminary budget figures. So school districts, as you are all aware, operate on a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year. So over in the business office, we are excitedly preparing for year end, and I can't see Denise, but I hope she's smiling as she's thinking about all the activity that's happening in the next couple of weeks, as we try to get pensies down.
Oh, I
I knew it. So the exciting thing about school finance is that we start our fiscal year on July 1, and we receive our final budget variables in October. So for the first 3 months of the year, it's so important for us to forecast, to estimate, and to run multiple scenarios so that when it comes time for October, we are more prepared than ever, and we're not taking.
Okay, at least you are lagging a little bit now.
Budget. Can you hear me okay?
Well, you cut out for quite a while there.
Okay, Denise, my backup was gonna be to dial in, and then if you're able to share, or should I just power through?
I can share the PowerPoint, yes.
Okay, I just don't want to cause any more disruption. I know school finance is tough enough, and then as it cuts in and out, even worse. So I'm gonna dial in.
Try just shutting your camera off.
Good idea.
That's what we did this morning with her too.
Yeah, a lot of times the camera takes a lot of buffer.
Okay, I shut off my camera so you can see my beautiful headshot. So can you still hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, wonderful. And I'm still sharing my screen, so we'll see how this goes. So the uncertainty of the final variables in October is compounded by the fact that we then operate on a 2-year biennial budget cycle. So the state provides budget figures every 2 years, and the 23-25 biennial budget cycle or biennial budget figures are just becoming finalized, and we have some preliminary numbers as well. Most importantly, the district's operational revenue budget is primarily driven by those state figures, and so that's why we spend so much time forecasting and estimating. And then another key component that has been a high level of discussion lately is ESSER funding. So those ESSER dollars must be spent in full by September of 2024. And really what that means is that for the 23-24 budget, we will seek to have ESSER spent. So amidst all this uncertainty, we still plan to position the district for financial success in the future and to balance the budget. So I like using this forecast visual, and you may have seen it in the past. It really just reemphasizes that the farther out you're looking, the more uncertain things may be, right? I know that we had a lot of snow in the northern parts of the state this year, and the district administrators use the best information they have at the time to make the best decision based on what they know. So we similarly use that to forecast ahead. So what was included as a part of that budget proposal? So I'll go through these pieces to start and then kind of flesh that out as it relates to how does it impact Ladysmith. So the revenue limit is something we spend a lot of time talking about. The revenue limit per pupil dollar amount previously, prior to Act 10, were indexed to inflation. Since that time, those dollars have been kind of, established via the state biennial budget, and the numbers have been all across the board, from $100 per pupil to $175. This biennium, the dollar amount per pupil is $325. in 23-24 and 24-25. Districts also are subject to what's called a low revenue ceiling, and this is essentially a minimum amount that districts are eligible to receive per pupil. The next piece is increases to the state equalization aid allocations. Additional state aid does not provide additional expendable dollars. Instead, it shifts the burden of the revenue limit from the taxpayer to the state. And I'll explore that a little bit more deeply on subsequent slides. The per pupil categorical aid allocation, there hasn't been any detail on it at this point in time, and so it seems that the dollar amount will be set at what it was last year, or over the last biennium, which was $742 per pupil. So from a budget perspective, no additional revenue for us in that bucket. And then lastly, and these are really the major ones that have given us significant operational revenue, is the special education categorical aid. Now, as you are all familiar with, the general fund reimburses the special education fund in order to balance that fund and provide additional dollars to special education students. The state doesn't reimburse those costs at 100%. Last year, it was reimbursed at a rate of 30%, but via the new biennial budget, the reimbursement is set to increase to 33.3%. So what that means for us is that we transfer less out of our Fund 10 budget, or rather we use less of our operational Fund 10 budget dollars to cover special education costs. And then these are some smaller buckets, but notable. There are some dollars earmarked for literacy and reading. We're not sure how that's going to be reflected yet, but that there is funding available for that. There will be increases to high-cost special education or high-cost transportation aid. In 21-22, Ladysmith received nearly $100,000. In 22-23, Ladysmith received nearly $112,000. And so increases here, just again, just little buckets, little pockets of additional revenue for the district. There's some money earmarked for mental health grants. The last 2 years, there was a dollar it's called Get Kids Ahead. It was a grant, and so many school districts expressed the need for these dollars to kind of aid with mental health supports and services during the pandemic, that this is projected to become an aid that districts just received. And then lastly, I mentioned that low revenue ceiling increase. Ladysmith in 22-23 was at $10,796, and the $325 that I mentioned on the last slide, this dollar amount will actually increase, will bump Ladysmith above that threshold, and therefore Ladysmith won't see any benefits from this low revenue ceiling increase. Now, if they increase it again next year for 24-25, we can talk, but as it stands right now, this low revenue ceiling increase doesn't do anything for the district. So I'm going to pause there. I know I covered a lot of very school finance jargony expressions, so I just want to pause and see if anyone has any questions at this point.
So just to make sure, when you say the number, I mean, that's student aid, 10,766, that's how much we go to 11,091 per student?
We'll go a little above 11,000 when we add the 325.
Okay, so for every student that attends Ladysmith within the district, is 11,091. And is that the same for open enrollment? Or is that's all. Okay. So member is student, right?
So the open enrollment is what, 70% out or in or out?
Sorry, the question was about open enrollment.
Yeah, what's the number for open enrollment in or out?
So right now, Ladysmith open enroll in revenue is 1.2 million approximately. And then their out expense is 832,000. So Ladysmith net is a net $400,000 winner approximately.
Okay.
For next year, so of note, there are some large junior and senior classes who are open enrolled in, there was large open enrolled in FTE or students. And so when Ladysmith graduates those students, you know, the 12th graders and 11th graders, and then they're open enrolling in smaller class sizes, that may cause that open enroll in revenue amount to shrink.
Okay.
So that is happening on the expense side as well. You know, class sizes are just getting a little bit smaller in general, but we are planning for that as well.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, one more.
Oh,
Help me understand what the equalization aid changes does of 154.7. What does that mean for us again now?
Sorry, what was the question? What is the additional aid?
Yeah, what will that mean for our district?
Yes, wonderful, great question. So additional aid, right, it's $154 million. So what, how am I supposed to, do I divide that by school district? So essentially what that means is that allocation is distributed statewide. So we can increase our estimates for what we'll receive for state equalization aid. However, state aid is distributed based on property wealth per member and statewide spending. So if a Madison or a Milwaukee, for example, districts that have lower property wealth per member and spend a considerable amount, if they are to spend more, then they may receive a greater chunk of that additional state aid funding. Now, we run projections through our Baird forecasting model, and we also have access to that statewide data, which allows us to get preliminary estimates for 23-24. And we are estimating that Ladysmith aid will increase. And part of that is tied to the defeasance that is to be finalized at the end of the month yet. So that is an additional expense out of the school district budget that is an eligible cost to receive aid for. So essentially by increasing the district's costs, because of how Ladysmith sits in the aid formula, you receive additional aid. So we'll shift essentially the portion of the revenue limit that the taxpayer would typically be responsible for, and then the state covers more of that portion. Did I explain that okay? And I do have a graph that kind of breaks down the revenue limit to EQ8 ratio to help demonstrate that in a visual as well. Great question.
Thank you.
So we talked about the revenue limit and state aid. because it is such a sizable chunk of the district's operating budget. You know, sometimes when districts are looking at budget shortfalls, there's a suggestion that, you know, we need to raise our fees, or we need to be better about collecting, you know, student fines, or we need to do more fundraising. And then the fact is that what I just described, those sources represent less typically than 20% of the district's budget. It's really this formula on the screen that I'm sharing that drives that revenue limit authority. So essentially this formula here says, this is the amount, this is the cap that Ladysmith is able to raise through the sources of property taxes and state aid. So this resident membership, this FTE, the third Friday count, is multiplied times that per pupil dollar amount in this, in 23-24, that's gonna be that 325, plus any one-time or ongoing exemptions. Ladysmith currently has the non-recurring referendum in place, so that's an example. To give you that district revenue limit authority, that's the maximum that the school district is able to raise. Once we've determined what that amount is, here's that maximum amount, essentially then the state can say, here's how much we can contribute. So of the district's revenue limit authority, here's what we, the state, can contribute based on Ladysmith's property wealth per member and spending. So this is why we say that it increases the state aid won't give the district more to spend, it just shifts this bar. So in years past, for Ladysmith, even last year, just taking a look at the comparison. So last year, let me flip this over real quick. That revenue limit to state aid ratio was 24% on the revenue limit, or the taxpayer, and 75% in the form of state aid. This year, you can see that shift. So district is receiving more aid and less falls locally. Am I explaining that okay?
Yep.
So given some of those pieces that I just described, here's a high-level snapshot of our 23-24 preliminary budget. So we're estimating what we call return to normal membership of approximately 720, and an additional per pupil increase of 325. You can see last year and the year prior, $0 were given via the state biennial budget in this bucket. This per pupil categorical aid amount is staying flat, so no additional revenue there. And then we do plan to balance, to keep the 23-24 budget balanced. Other highlights on this slide include the total tax levy and the mill rate, as well as that non-recurring referendum that is included as a part of the total school-based tax levy, but we like to kind of keep it separate so that everyone's reminded that makes up a portion of the district's operating levy, and then the estimated tax impact. So I know there are a lot of numbers on this slide, so I'll pause here and see if anybody has any questions.
Just to make sure, so the 3,291 school-based tax levy, that's the cap of what we can raise in taxes right there? Is that cap?
You are thinking it correctly, yes, so that is essentially the, what falls locally, yes.
Why does the state, I mean, all our costs go up by all the inflationary stuff, right? We gotta have all the increases, we gotta have, everything else goes up. How does that not go up by 5%? I mean, what do they think? I mean, really?
I love the question.
I know
And
it's
you,
not your
and I
problem.
will share with you, you're not the first one to ask it.
You have to talk about it.
Yes, I guess. I don't get it.
Right.
I mean, it's good for the
I know.
taxpayer because they don't get any more levy on it, so that's fine, but.
Right.
So, I mean, the thing that people gotta realize is that's the max we can do, so it doesn't matter whether all the home values go up in Ladysmith or not, that's the maximum we're gonna collect anyway, it just drives down the mill rate.
Right.
So, but anyway.
Correct. That's right, and just anecdotally, I can also share, there were proposals that had suggested a per pupil increase in an amount that would catch school districts up, because that amount has lagged inflation for however many years. That amount was in the range of $1,300 per pupil. So for districts who don't receive state aid, they said, so essentially you're increasing our ability to tax our local residents, and we can't offset that with increases to aid. And the way that Ladysmith is funded is they benefit from the increases to the state equalization aid allocation. So it is a fortunate position to be in, but yes, and the district does have some control, some additional control over this levy amount through Fund 39. So that, once those state biennial budget figures become known in October, then that Fund 39 levy, the district is obligated to levy for principal interest payments. But as the district was able to do this year, taking advantage of, the advantageous additional aid from the state, you can levy additional in order to prepay that in the future and save on future interest costs down the road. So more to come on that certainly in the fall once we have more firm numbers, but there's some flexibility, and as Ladysmith continues to be in this position, definitely worth discussing. So Laura and I will share some high-level 23-24 budget highlights. So I just bored you all with the numbers, and this is really what those numbers are. They're exciting. These are the exciting parts, right? So I'll speak to the first two bullets, and then I'll have Laura kind of cover the remaining bullets, which are much more, like I said, fun to talk about. So in 23-24, the district did see a over 9% increase in health insurance rates. So that is something that we are analyzing and continuing to investigate for an area of potential savings for 24-25. We're in contact with multiple vendors to kind of get the best deal for the district, but quite honestly, I work in districts all across the state, and 10% is one of the smaller percent increases that I've seen statewide. A couple other districts that I work with closely saw 25% increase, and then the lowest that I saw was 7%. So that means different things for these different people, right? 25% on a small number is still important, but may not be as meaningful. So that said, the district was able to provide competitive salary increases for staff this year amidst this uncertainty. So that's certainly a highlight. And then the second bullet, extra funding has allowed Ladysmith to help offset some operational costs with these federal dollars, which has positioned the district well to utilize operational funds towards things that usually get pushed to the side. So a district maintenance budget is typically one of the first things to get pushed to kind of the back burner. And Ladysmith is doing some wonderful things to enhance its facilities and keep kids safe. So I'll just kick it over to Laura to talk to some of the other more fun, exciting bullet points on this slide.
Okay, so as you can see there, a lot of this was ESSER dollars that helped us do this, but we have upgraded K-12 curriculum, math, science, social studies, and ELA. Ladysmith was very, very behind in updating curriculum, so that was just a wonderful gift to give to our district and utilize that to really get our curriculums up to date. The one-to-one technology in grades 2 through 12, we didn't have that prior to COVID. We do now. And our SRO officer is another big plus, and I know that the community and the board feels very strongly about that. And so that's been an added feature in our building. The after-school tutoring for middle school and high school, we've done that for 2 full years now, and that is really, really popular at the middle school. Not as well received at the high school, but we are still offering it. It's just high schoolers are really busy, really, really busy people. And of course, the exciting part is our referendum projects and all the great things that we're doing to get our facility that was really needing a lot of attention to get our facility back on track. So there's going to be a lot of reasons to be excited about attending Ladysmith.
Was it ESSER funding that drove the one-to-one technology?
Yes.
Do we have any type of a forecast or plan for updating?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a one-time purchase, but it's gonna be a one-time purchase every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, we have been working with KA and Jim and the district office to make sure that we have, is it every 4-year recycle?
Four-year refresh, but we also demote those devices and get as long as we can out of them. And then in many instances, we are able to recoup some of the funding back for the resale after recycling money.
As far as the new curriculum, do you have a choice in what you pick from that, or does it give it to you from something that, every 3rd grade has this book? You know, do you have a choice or who picks that?
So every independent, so we have committees, teachers are on committees or departments. So if it's a math purchase, all the math teachers at the middle school, high school are involved in that whole process. It's a year-long process to come up with that. Actually, in math, we took 2 years because we had a really hard time deciding with middle school and high school together exactly what we wanted. So we actually purchased high school first, and middle school was able to kind of continue to research that, and they're purchasing for this year. At the elementary, every teacher teaches everything, and so those teachers are on a committee. They're either on the math, ELA, science, and social studies committee. So they work with Nathan, they work with CISA if needed, they work with a bunch of different reps that are, and then they do a lot of research, and there's some really good webs. There's really good educational websites out there that help us select curriculum. It's called Ed Reports, and they score your curriculum according to like how test it out on kids and score it in terms of how kids will do. So we use the Ed Reports for all those decisions, but that's only for math and ELA. For science and social studies, we're leaning on CISA and other experts to kind of help in those areas. But definitely never done in isolation. Also, never done where a 3rd grade is different than a 2nd grade. Like it is an elementary decision, it's a middle school decision, it's a high school decision. So they can't pick and choose, they have to get on board and work collaboratively. We use our PLC process, our weekly PLC process to make sure that that happens.
So have you received the new curriculum, the new books and things like that?
But yeah, so some of it was phased in right away in year one, some in year two, some in year three, and now we're getting the last of it coming up for this year.
So we're in the fourth step, fourth phase. Okay.
Because we started with our ELA at the elementary. Now, that particular curriculum is not purchased with ESSER funds. We purchased that curriculum with district dollars prior to ESSER funds being a thing. That was prior to COVID. And then everything else has come post-COVID with ESSER funding.
So social studies one that we approved last fall,
Yep.
that was extra funds, okay.
Yeah, and a certain percentage of your ESSER funds have to be used on learning loss. So, you know, that's a really good way to utilize those funds.
Can ESSER money be used to, I know like the tech ed department was supposed to get the new air quality system. And I know, I thought ESSER money bought that, but do we use the money for installation, or does that have to come from the district?
No, we can use that for everything. They're still kind of researching. We have a placeholder in our budget for that to happen. So they have the money set aside in our budget for ESSER. But we're still researching what's the best approach down here. And so Kyle and Brian and myself and Greg Smozek kind of had a meeting just recently to try to figure out, okay, when are we gonna pull the trigger on this? Because we only have one more year to spend these funds. We have to have everything spent by September 2024. So, yeah, it will happen if we have to pick the right tool for them. So we're still kind of researching that. I told them it's okay. Like if they don't want to make a decision until like mid-fall or early winter, that's fine. We'll still have time to make it happen.
And how much is in there?
How much is in
Estimate?
ESSER? Well, we have about, is that right? We have about 800,000, oh yeah, Lisa's on too, about 800,000 left to spend. So,
It's a fair amount.
yeah. Yeah, and we've spent all of ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. We're just working on ESSER 3. Now, we did a lot with some additional salaries at the very beginning to try to add more help for kids. And now we're pulling that funding into Fund 10 for this upcoming year to prepare for the fact that we have to be able to pay for our own people moving forward. ESSER is going away. So now we're looking at finishing off ESSER, utilizing those dollars for those things, you know, like finishing up curriculum. We have some earmarked for some air quality in the shop. We have some earmarked for air quality in our school building. So anyway, and we have time to continue to nail that down.
Yeah, but you're right, you can't create your own liability.
Yeah, one more question.
Go ahead.
Just going back to that state aid number of what per pupil, about what it was, 11,000 something.
Yeah, that, well, whether we see them increasing or we're talking.
Yeah, well, what we get, right? We were talking about our increase was much.
Yeah, so ours was, Elise, we are at 10.7-ish. And when you add the 335, we'll be over the 11,000 ceiling, but just a little bit over. So in other words, that big gavel swing didn't help us any, because we would have gone over just by the 325 per pupil increase. But any district that was lower than us, if they, when they raise the 325, if they don't get to 11,000, they have the ability to levy for 11,000 per pupil. So everybody has the ability to levy for that amount come this fall.
Correct, yep. So there were some districts that their low revenue, I should rephrase, their maximum revenue per member, the maximum they could receive per student was $10,000. $766 lower than Ladysmith. So Ladysmith was able to generate 766 more per student. So you guys are actually fairly close to the state average. The goal of this low revenue increase was really to try to bring some of those low spending districts back when revenue limits were put into place, bring those guys back up to for more in pace with their peers, because they believe they were disproportionately impacted when revenue limits were set, almost 20 years ago. So.
Well, did the passing of our referendum affect any of that?
That's a great question. So the non-recurring referendums do not impact that maximum revenue per member, but recurring referendums that add to a district's base revenue limit authority do. So in the case of Ladysmith, the 600 non-recurring is not contributing to that maximum revenue amount.
Well, that's a good thing. Otherwise, why would we do it? So if we hadn't done it, what would have happened?
Had passed an operating referendum?
Yes, that question since it's in the past. That's more on.
Well, it wouldn't impact us as much as it would another district had we not passed. Because any district that didn't pass their operational referendum in the past 3 years, if they are a low revenue ceiling district, they don't even get to go to the 11,000. They're being penalized. Is that accurate, Louise?
That's correct. That impacts about 20 districts across the state, and it means for them between really $700 per pupil that they are not eligible for as a result of failing an operating question. That's still that's something we've been focused on. Thankfully, it's not new to Ladysmith. We are very grateful and fortunate that not only did the operating referendum pass, but also that the district's maximum revenue per member is in such a place that had it not passed, that they wouldn't be penalized either. So.
You have no more? Sure.
Well,
We want to take 5 minutes and write a couple more down.
I love it. We've been talking state budget for I've actually maybe been reading about it, so I appreciate the questions. It's definitely what we've been living in lately. So really the final points are just, that for 22-23, we're tracking really well to close out the fiscal year strong, to position the district to make, as budgeted, a contribution to Fund 46 this year as well. And then for next year, we continue to monitor the state variables I described. And come September and October, we will have even more information to help really set that 23-24 budget.
It's your slide, Jeff.
What's up?
Jeff's slide.
Yeah, Jeff's up. You got it. Anybody else? Thank you.
Yes, I do appreciate you all bearing with me. I understand, virtual is not ideal, but I promise it's not just for no reason. I am also 7 months pregnant, and I live in the Milwaukee area. So I love traveling to Ladysmith. My husband and my doctor were a little bit suspicious of that suggestion. Not that I would deliver anytime soon, but they just are being cautious. So I do appreciate your flexibility in that as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thanks,
Yep.
Elise.
Bye.
Thank you.
You done, Mark?
Yes.
So we're next. Great. Brandon project update. Am I taking your thunder?
No, that's right.
Huh?
Okay, so I have Gary Zitko and Paige Shellman here, and I don't think you met Paige before. So they'll introduce themselves and give you a little update on all of the excitement at Ladysmith.
All right, so I'm happy to be back. Gary Zipko, the senior project manager for the project, and Greg Smojic, our site superintendent, he's the guy on site Monday through Friday, opening the gate, closing the gate, and then Gage is the project manager who handles all the day-to-day stuff, so I'll let Gage introduce himself.
Yeah, so project manager for Cross Anderson, our Wisconsin team. And I'll just go over the highlights for what we accomplished this month and what we're looking forward to coming up. So for the new media center, we got that, all the underground work is complete. We poured the concrete slab for that. We have drywall complete in the previous library where you used to hold these meetings. So that's pretty exciting. We have completely gutted buildings 4 and building 7. And we've instead started framing those areas. We have all existing site utilities removed, rerouted, and the new utilities installed. Continuing placing base on the new parking lot area. And then the canopy for the new outdoor lunch area, we have the footings poured for that. So we'll get that slab poured here pretty soon in the coming months. We ripped out the corridor that used to connect the cafeteria to the existing gym, so that's completely gone now. And we're continuing electrical and mechanical demo and getting those new connections roughed in. We've started roofing just this past week, the re-roofing of those buildings there. And we're doing, we started drain tile installation there, which that is, it's to help with all the drainage on the edges of the buildings. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the leaking problems we had and the condition of the bottoms of the wall there. So this is a system that we do waterproofing, we do insulation, we do it about 4 feet underground, place a pipe there that will carry all that water away from the building. Some things that we have upcoming, I'll keep this just brief and high level, but all that football field work, we'll be taking down the light poles, we'll be hauling out the old bleachers, we'll be getting all that stuff done. We have precast walls for the new gymnasium to be delivered with structural framing there going in, as well as the new media center. A lot of finishes we'll get started on, paint, ceilings, and flooring, starting with that previous library area, now classroom area. And continuing with drain tile, that drain tile system on the exterior walls of the building there. And yeah, that's pretty much a high level overview. I have some pictures here too. Picture 1 is where that old library used to be, so that's changed quite a bit. The one on the right up there is the parking lot, and that's showing that they got started there and laying the base course before they get the asphalt put down there. The middle left picture is the new slab for the new media center on the west side of the building. The picture next to that is the footings for that new courtyard lunch area. And then the picture on the bottom left is them installing that drain tile system at the perimeter walls of one of the courtyards there on the building to help with all the drainage issues. And the last picture is just framing starting in building 7. And anything to add or any questions?
And the re-roofing will help all the leaking they've had over the years.
Yes, we took an extensive look at all of that.
we took a lot of extensive work.
A lot of investigative work, for sure, for sure.
Be funny, because of the drain tiles not being there, are you finding any additional foundation damage from the water?
Slight, but we're patching it and then placing waterproofing over those patches. Nothing structurally.
Nothing special.
We're not sinking.
No, no.
They're not jerry rigging.
Everything looks really great. I have a question for you though. I got a call today about 2:30, 2:40, about the softball field dugouts. Because the softball is ongoing right now.
Yep.
And so the coach is super upset about the dugout being dug up and then not usable. You know, they have teams coming in to practice, and so there wasn't any place to sit, even on the grass. But he got a hold of one of the skid steer drivers or somebody over there and flattened it out enough for the game this evening.
Okay.
But I think, you know, before like baseball or, you know, some of those things, you maybe want to coordinate that better because
Of course.
you know, they're ongoing for the summer.
Yeah, I will follow up on that. That shouldn't have happened, so apologize for that.
Well, it's, I mean, it was today, so it had to be today, so. And then the other thing is the road construction, was there a section of the road that was planned on being redone and now it's not gonna be done?
Yes, I did forget to touch on that. So we are going to be, redoing the entire, bus drop-off area at the front of the building there. We were able to secure additional funding for that, so that'll be starting next week.
So it's gonna get done?
It is part of the project, yep.
Is that the road, are you talking about the road?
That's the front entrance.
Yeah,
The front-
Yeah.
the front drive.
There was a stretch that was gonna get done that got pulled out now because of budget.
Correct, and now since we secured additional funding for that, we've now added it back into the project.
Okay.
Yep.
And the road going behind the building, you're just gonna patch that?
That gets,
So the road that goes along the football field and the
Yeah.
softball fields, that'll just get probably resealed. Then the new parking lots and everything for the new gym in the back there, that'll all be brand new.
Okay.
So from the road, what road is that on the side? 16. That's getting redone or not?
That 16th is not, and the maintenance road, that goes along the backside of the bleachers is not getting completely redone.
I mean, that's the
that's
worst
the
part.
worst chunk.
Do we own that?
Well, the city owns from where we pull in until our service road. Okay, so that's the city.
Along the fence line?
I mean, it's like there's gravel that's big there, so.
Yeah, and the city is aware, and we call them every year. And
Our
our
section, right? You know, like where you go from that corner.
So our section after that will be fixed up by Price Anderson because that's where they're doing the call. They're doing a complete re-blacktop there, but they'll get it fixed up and then they'll do the blacktop by the gymnasium. The service road won't be touched.
Just seems to me that that road is like the most used road, you know, besides the front of the school. It doesn't make sense not to improve that.
We don't own that one.
Not that, but like from there.
They are improving.
They are.
Yeah.
Just putting the top on it.
Yeah,
Because they're kind of,
we're not gonna dig it all up and put a brand new driveway there, but we can patch it and seal it, so it's much smoother driving it now.
The patching is like patch.
Yeah, it's how the city fixes potholes, how they.
So it's like for when you're nice. but
Yeah.
it's different than- It's not really nice for the city. I mean, that, I mean, it is what it is,
potentially,
but.
Yeah.
we could coordinate with the
Understand.
city though, when they go to do their stretch, we could coordinate our stretch, you know, and get it all done at that time.
I just know how, I mean, the roads and things like that are super expensive, so I mean, we're not gonna have, if we have money now, we're not gonna have money later to fix that.
Well,
Again,
but I don't think we do have money for that right now. It's not in the budget right now.
no, it should have been. we're putting all this money into this brand new facility and all this nice stuff, and we're gonna have that terrible road going in there.
But that's only, what, about 100-foot section? From the bus stop, for when the bus pickup to
And
where
then
the
you have
service
that
road
drop off,
comes
you know, like where the grade is, where you walk into the, you know, into the ball field, and that's all, yeah, there.
in. But from where the service road, where it turns, it loops around the north side of the school. From there, east, we don't. From there west, we don't. So it's really not that big of a chunk there that would get patched instead of.
That's something we should have worked on with the city when we
Yeah.
were wheeling and dealing with the building. We
Yeah.
just took that one section. I
I
didn't
have-
realize the city owned that part too.
We'll send like the plan sheet around that shows what's, because I feel like,
Where the cutoff.
yeah, we'll send a plan sheet that shows the extent of what's getting replaced. Yeah.
I just made a note, so.
That's okay, I mean, every town in Wisconsin has state back roads, so I mean, we know what patch does.
At the same time, do we want people using that as a main drag? I don't. I mean, especially not if we got buses going back there and pick people up.
Like just
Well, I don't
the
think-
kids and every alternate people visitors.
Football and then.
Yeah,
Right. But again, most of that parking is taking place on city road. From the service road out to 16.
we just gotta, you gotta get this one thing, so everything looks nice at the same time. Okay, thank you for your time.
Any other? Thanks, Jason. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
I'm wondering if you could do something to help out, Chief Julian. I was trying to put him further down on the agenda because of his meeting, but now he has a commitment after this meeting. And so, can we get approval to move, Chief Julian, the SRO report up to right now, and then go on from there?
I'll make a motion to move.
Second.
Or did someone?
I second. I did second. I heard myself.
You said L.
Huh?
You said L.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed?
Okay, let's do.
Opposed, you can shut. Evan?
Doesn't it do that option?
So my,
Well, we could start with the principals and then Kevin can chime in. Okay?
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's kind of how we had it planned.
You wanna go first this time?
No, I think Mr. Poslowitz is the one that's really well versed in this.
I can go first, because Mr. Stein is having an issue over here. I have a report on overall, I think the SRO is a very positive for our school, good positive impact. Watching the officer approach our students, have conversations with them, just have positive interactions was great to see. We have the SRO that are typically there before school, lunch, most of the time at the end of the day. But there's a chance for them, the officer greeting students, Officer Fisher especially, tremendous. Until it got cold out, he was actually outside the front doors greeting students. At lunch, just going and striking up conversations with kids that had nothing to do with his job or anything to do. A lot of times it was fishing, other things like that. So he was able to make those positive connections with kids that we were hoping to have. So they could, kids feel comfortable coming to him with things. And when he did need to talk to them, they were more willing to talk. He was accessible to students to report things to. Often we had parents that would come in the morning, something that happened at home last night or in the community, and they wanted to report it. They would come in and ask, hey, is the SRO here? Can we talk to him? So we were able to set those up, so building that positive relationship as well. Just a lot of things like that. And then, of course, addressing behaviors when they occur. Obviously, any school's going to have some issues, and they were there to help address those issues with students more often proactively than reactively.
I'd say in terms of the relationships, one of the big things that sticks out in my mind was, we talked to a student towards the end of the school year, and before the officer's like, how do you think this is gonna go? I was like, we'll see. And, after the conversation was done, the officer's like, I honestly believe if I had not been in the school the whole year, that conversation would have been much more negative, and the kid was very cooperative and talked with him. It went really, really smoothly, and, I think that was a direct result of relationships that he had spent building with that student and other students throughout the year, so I think it was definitely beneficial.
For the elementary school, I would piggyback off of both of them. The relationships that they built, the majority of the time we had Officer Ruff here. She did a fabulous job. The kids, when, officers first came in, they're kind of a little bit quiet, a little bit leery. By the end, they were running up to her, giving her hugs, chatting. In talking with her, she felt it went really well. We also had her sometimes help out with some teaching opportunities. If there was a student having some issues and stuff, she'd come in and have a conversation with them. We thought it was very, very positive, and the kids enjoyed it, and towards the end, they were talking, cracking jokes with each other, and just loved when she would come in and visit.
I'd say another big benefit was when the SRO could come in and inform us of an incident that happened the night before, so you know kind of what to watch for and which students maybe have issues with which students and stuff, so that was also very helpful that way.
Well, first off, I apologize for my uniform tonight. I had somebody ask me if I just came from the beach. I didn't, I came from the hospital, but dealing with a family emergency, so that's why I'm in this, not a uniform tonight, so I apologize for that. I mirror pretty much everything the principals had to say. I have 2 kids in the district, and I think the SR was priceless. I know that the district put money aside for it this year and hopefully in the years to come. But in my opinion, as a law enforcement officer, as a parent to 2 kids in the district, I think it's priceless. Pretty much because of everything that they said also. But some of the things that I guess I would highlight is, one of the main things, at least for us, is the overall safety. Like the principal Oswald said, I would say 90% of the days, the school days, we have an officer standing out front, and that's when the school's most vulnerable. The doors are wide open, there's the principal standing there, a lot of times the superintendent, other teachers, staff, we're there. So if God forbid something does happen, we're gonna be there. I'll get to a few other things, but the relationships and trusts that were built, from my understanding throughout the entire year, that's priceless as well. We're living in a world that there's a lot of distrust with officers right now. And these kids might have a negative feeling towards just because we wear a badge or have that uniform on. And I think by the end of the year, I would say that there was a strong majority of kids that had a lot of trust for the officers. One of our officers, and I believe it was Officer Fisher, had a child that, we deal with on an occasional basis. I think the school deals with them on an occasional basis. We wanted him to come to his wrestling event, on his time off. I mean, that probably would have never happened if this wasn't the case. The reports from issues going on at home were far great this year, at least from my perspective. I think there was a lot of things reported. It started because of the SRO. So the SRO got tipped off about some child abuse or some child sexual assault stuff or sexual stuff in nature. Maybe that went to red reported. So I think we were able to affect a lot of families in the community just by having officers for 2 days a week. Besides, Mr. Steinman mentioned Officer Ruff coming to the elementary school. Those were bonus hours for the district. I mean, we already had an officer generally at the high school for 3 hours that day. But Officer Ruff, she loved to come see the kids, and she loved the interaction with the kids. She loved the interaction with the staff. She came here quite often. I wouldn't say every day she worked because she did get tied up sometimes, but she came for a half hour, an hour, hour and a half, and those I mean, we're talking like, we're trying to always think like bang for your buck, you know, anytime you put money into something, you want bang for your buck. I mean, those are bonus hours that she gave to the school community. Those weren't hours we wrote down, you know, or that we sent invoice for. And then also, Mr. Hughes, you know, during prom, sent me an email, said, hey, can we get an officer out here to check in? You know, we used to charge for that. I mean, it sounds crazy, but we used to charge the district for that. We didn't do that. I had to watch a lot of games this year, basketball games on not Zoom, but on YouTube. And a lot of times I had an officer or two standing at the entrance to the gym there. We don't charge for that stuff. Now, would they have went there if we didn't have a contract? I don't know, but we encourage them to go as much as we can, you know, the sporting events, because unfortunately, there's another vulnerable time when the school is wide open and there can be issues. All year, you know, we had some concerns that we addressed. We had some concerns. I think some officers didn't really understand, like, okay, I'm out here now, what the heck do I do? You know, I know I'm supposed to interact, but what am I supposed to do really? So some concerns were brought up, but we worked through them, and I think we worked through them successfully. I always talk about trying to, you know, if we continue this, we really got to try to get out of repetition of the squads parked there every single morning for an hour, and then an hour here and an hour there. But we only have 3 hours. It's unfortunate, but we just have to try to work on trying to be a little more random, just so kids don't know exactly when we're going to be there. I talked to a fair amount of teachers in the last couple of weeks, and I think their opinions would mirror the opinions of the principals. I've had many teachers tell me, we want you here all day, every day. But you know, all that goes. Our office manager and I went to a grant training a couple months ago, and I asked about SRO grants. And I feel like they're gonna be a thing in the future. I haven't seen anything yet, but the moment that I start seeing them, her and I are gonna start writing grants. So if we can pull some federal funds or some state funds, I would gladly try to do that. I'll put time into doing it, whatever's gonna benefit the school district, so. Other than that, I guess that's my report, so. Thank you for bringing it back. It was years that it wasn't here. Thank you for bringing it back. I think it's, like I said, as a parent to a couple kids in the district, I definitely welcome this.
Questions? No, it's a great program, Kevin.
Just like my last meeting was easy, I didn't have any questions either. Fire away if you got something, otherwise feel free to contact me.
I don't say fire.
Anytime. I forgot I'm in the school. Feel free to send any emails or phone calls my direction, and I'll gladly be very transparent and answer them the way they need to be answered, so.
Yeah, I don't know the other officer, I know Doug, of course, he's the officer down there, which is teaching a couple of years. He does a hell of a job. I mean, on the Giversham scale, he's way up there.
I know I've asked the officer about as much. You ask her how she likes going to school, big smile on her face, it's like the best time of her day. Really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, it's been a very good program, very back, so I'm excited to have it back.
That's money better spent.
I appreciate the work for that too, so.
Thank you. Hope you don't have to go back to the hospital.
Not tonight.
Good.
Yeah,
HER.
you just take it from here, right?
Take it. Thank you.
No, you take it.
Well, it's time for Mr. Your presentation.
All right. So this year, we also have the RTI and PBIS report coming up, which is going to mirror a lot of this. So I'm gonna kind of go through this one quickly, because the other one's much more visually easy to read. If that's all right with you. It's the same data, but I just wanna make sure, otherwise I'll do it all. All right, so starting out, at the beginning of the year, we set some goals for K through, well, really K through 5, but on this report it's K through 3, for students that all fall below the 30th percentile. So I'm just gonna kind of start out with kindergarten reading. At the beginning of the year, we had 21 of our students that were below the 30th percentile. By the end of the year, according to FastBridge data, we had 6 of those students gain what FastBridge considers adequate progress to achieving that gap. As you can see, we did have 2 students that left during the middle of the year, so I don't know if they would have made adequate progress or not. One thing that I will say with every one of the kids on this is they did make a lot of gains. They just didn't, they would miss by 1 or 2 points, so they didn't make quite enough gains according to FastBridge for each of them.
But
So-
overall, there's improvement.
Every one of them did improve. I wish I could pull up, but confidential stuff. I can't show exactly how much gains every one of those kids made, but they all did make gains. And as the year progresses, the test does get harder and harder. In math, 7 out of the 16 at the beginning of the year, well, at the beginning of the year, there was 18 kids below 30th percentile. Again, 2 students, it was the same 2 from the reading and the math that did leave our district. So we had 7 of the 16 students at the end of the year make adequate progress. In first grade, we had 19 students that did not make, or that were below the 30th percentile at the end of the year. We did lose 2 of those students as well. We did only have 1 kid that made adequate progress according to FastBridge in the reading program for first grade. Math, we had 17 students that were below 30th percentile. At the end of the year, we had 8 of those. Now it's 16 students because we had 1 student move away. Second grade in math, oh, I missed it, sorry, I skipped the reading one. In second grade, we had 31 students below 30th percentile. By the end of the year, we had 21 of those 31 students make adequate progress. So as the years go on, what's happening is they're making more and more gains. Each year that they're in the programs, titled small group instruction, or if we do have to work with SPED, it's also in SPED. In second grade math, we had 25 students below 30th percentile at the beginning of the year. By the end, 19 of those students made adequate progress. In third grade, for reading, 25 students were below 30th percentile. At the end of the year, 18 of those students made adequate progress. And then also for third grade in math, we had 17 students below 30th percentile. By the end of the year, we had 11 that made adequate progress. So as you can see, in some of the older grades, that's where we're making more gains than when we had in kindergarten or first grade. Those are those foundational skills that they take a little bit more time to gain so that we can make those other progressions. Yes, it does. Yeah. It does include, all of these do include special ed kids and all of that, so it does take a little bit more time.
When we talk about the whole number, so if it's like 17 out of 50 for math and reading, are they assume that a lot of those would be the same kids for each math and reading?
Most of the time, yes. Yep. I would almost say that if they're on the reading, they're probably going to be on math. Not always, if they're on math, they might not always be on the reading, if that makes sense.
And the scores in the fall, the numbers are always higher than they are a lot of times in the summer. They're not doing any reading or any math.
Typically, yes.
Oh, both of those grades, second and third grade would have been majorly impacted by COVID in their first grade where you're learning how to teach students, so. I mean, while the improvement isn't quite what I'd like to see it, it's fairly impressive when you look at the whole scheme of things. Those kids missed out on a whole year of learning how to teach students.
Yeah.
Are you guys happy with the numbers?
I would say, like I said, if I could show you the students' scores, I would, and knowing some of the students, I would say, yes, they did work very hard. The teachers worked very hard with them. Is there a couple things that, as going through this and our data discussion that we'll talk about in our next slide, is there a couple things that we've identified that we can work on a little bit more? Yeah. And that's kind of what our goal is for us to progress as teachers as well. So, as far as the students, yeah, they worked hard.
Sorry, so is this, report, do we have one from 2020 or from 2021, or is this something new?
No, this goes back for a while.
Decades, so
Yeah.
could, like, big COVID, you know, where the kids, I know they're all different children. and
I
through
don't-
it, but are we
I don't have
making
access to
progress?
them. I don't know. I don't have access to them. Prior to me being here, I might have yours.
They'd all be on board docs.
Okay, yeah, I don't personally have access to them.
It'd just be interesting to see if it's usually 25 kids or 50 that are below 30%, or, you know, where we are from past years.
So typically, a lot of times in special education, they'll tell you about 15-20% is a pretty standard number for across all schools of your special education population. So I mean, in a class of 50 kids, that's 10 kids that need special education for a variety of things.
And we haven't always used FastBridge as our screener. For years, we used Star Reader and Accelerated Math. So the screener's a little, concepts are the same, but the way they put the data together is a little different. So we heard.
Yeah, so they might not quite jive, you know, and one of the things is with our kindergarten and our first grade, they actually use a little bit different of a test than our second grade, fifth grade, well, actually through middle school and even 10th grade. Anyway, so those two grades, it's a little bit different just because of the nature, the kids are so young, you can't just put them on a computer and have them go. So it's more of a one-on-one, so it's a little bit different.
So this is a requirement that we report to the board 2 times a year on AGR. So those of you that maybe are not so familiar with AGR, which is what it's been called probably the past 7, 8 years. Before that, it was called SAGE. You probably are very familiar with that. And basically, it's federal funds that we get to keep our class sizes down. 18 is the max, it's an 18-to-1 ratio. And so we can choose other things too. We can choose tutoring, we can choose coaching. But that is a way that we keep those class sizes.
Is that just for elementary?
It's just K-3,
For the class sizes?
just K-3.
Yeah, and it's, the program used to be SAGE, so then at that point it was 16 or under, I believe, and now
I
it's
think
changed.
it's always 18.
But now then you can also add in the coaching and things like that, so there's some other avenues.
Anybody else? And you're right, I saw, just watching the news today, and they little runner across the bottom for the impact of COVID on, just across the board. I think it was, whatever scale they were using, it was gone down. 4 points for math, 6 points for reading or something, so I think they pretty much, well, not pretty much, everybody. It's just a-
Yeah.
It's not a good time.
No, and I think if COVID were to hit again today, I think that we would see a much better impact than what we saw back in 2020 because we learned how to teach remotely, we learned how to learn remotely, we learned how to do so many more things remotely. So, and I think the impact going forward would be less, but it was huge back then. We'll do better. We'll do better at things.
Much more gooder.
Much more good.
There you go.
We do better.
Okay.
Is, do you guys see the middle school ones? Are the number of students, or is that the percentage that's below?
They should go percentages.
Yeah, there. Are you looking at the RTI one?
We're gonna get you some better.
I'm already
charts and stuff.
adjourned the meeting, so.
Well, I was just scrolling down to that same one that didn't hard. I just went to the next slide and it said LMS, Math Bridge, reading and math, so it's just curious.
I'm on that one too, just because I was
Yeah,
encouraged.
Nate was actually on the bullet of that.
Yeah,
Doing the really wordy one that you can't do.
we'll move on to the next one, then we'll get to that for you.
The RTI one.
Slide.
The next,
The next, another
Agenda.
bullet, the next agenda item.
RTI.
Yeah. This one.
yeah. I wanted to look at that because it was encouraging to hear that you guys are doing something with the data instead of just looking at the data. So I wanted to jump the gun.
Well, since we jumped the gun, let's jump the gun.
All right, well, so I'll kind of get into it, here. So the difference between the data on this one and the one on the other one was, this is out of like the kids below 30th percentile overall, like all of the kids. It's not showing those kids, just the kids below the 30th percentile and just their growth. This is all of the kids, if that makes sense. So looking at it, this is comparing the first slide that we're on. Yep, all right. So we're on A reading, and this is what I was talking about, second grade on up. A math. Kindergarten and first grade do a completely different test, so I have their data down a couple slides. This is just to kind of compare the two. So at the beginning of the year is the light blue, the mid-year is the dark blue, and then the orange is the end of the year where students scored. Again, with math, this is that one that has that roller coaster because of the concepts. At the beginning of the year, then they start mastering them, then they get new concepts, and then it just depends on where they fall throughout the year. Do you have any questions for math? Okay, I'll keep going. So then A reading, in second grade, you can see that from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, they dropped significantly. Third grade from the beginning of the year was 50%, to the end of the year was 44%. One thing I'm gonna highlight on, just with third grade, because, she left, but wait till she comes back. Because I can go back, some data on.
Just jump ahead and then go back.
So, and then fourth and fifth grade, as you can see, our data didn't do what we wanted to do. And we did identify a few things that we, as a staff, can work on for next year.
Say that again. What did, say that, what?
So,
I thought you said your dad didn't do whatever.
well,
Because the orange one should be a lot lower
yeah,
at the end of the year than the other ones when they went up.
isn't showing us what we wanted
The
to
data
see.
didn't represent the.
It's not representing what exactly what we
You're not
want.
blaming the dad, are you?
No, I'm not blaming that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying,
Sounds
like,
that's what we're doing.
looking at it,
No,
it's
no.
not what exactly we wanted to happen.
Oh, no.
We did identify a few things in there
She's
as
coming
we were
back.
talking. Well, I'll finish with this and then I'll go back to that one.
You do you, man.
So just, there was a few things for those two class period, or those two grades that we identified that we think we need to work on a little bit more. Working with some staff, working with some of our procedures, putting in a few more, looking at our tier one, or actually it would be tier 2 and tier 3 a little bit more, and working on those to shore up our, kind of those bubble kids. Those are the kids that are right around that 30th percentile, so that they don't drop throughout the school year. All right, One thing that I was gonna quick highlight is the third grade, Jen, is because of the fact that you were asking about previous scores. So the third grade, at the beginning of the year, we had 50% of those students that were below 30th percentile for reading. Last year alone, they were at 61%. So from last year to this year, we went from 61% down to 50% at the beginning of the year, and then now down to 44%. So 61 down to 44 in, in that time. Okay. I'll keep going down.
I'm just thinking, I'm sorry.
You're good.
What happens next year? Just to do the same process?
As far as, what do you mean, same process as far as what?
Well, there's still 40-some% that are below where they don't be.
Alright, so that's where, a couple slides down, we have action plans moving forward to kind of.
Got it.
Yep, I haven't got there, but yep, we'll get there.
Jumping ahead.
You're good. All right, so as far as ELA and math percentages for the kindergarten and first grade, again, these are mirroring exactly what we had on the AGR report. Because our data that's the early reading, it's where they sit down and read or do math with a teacher one-on-one. So it's really different than the other one where it's more of the student on their own. Again, students made progress towards their goal. We didn't have 100%, which is your ultimate goal, but we did have students making progress in our kindergarten and first grade levels. The LES RTI system, this is really mirrored kind of what we talked about a little bit last year as far as we work on a graduate release where the teachers aren't lecturing for the full, well, for ELA it would be 120 minutes. They're supposed to be working with the students. They do some of the direct instruction. Then from there, they work on it together, and then we release the kids to kind of work on their own. And at that time, teachers are pulling groups and working with those groups individually, or I should say individually or in small groups. We have meetings on a weekly basis to talk about data. We're grouping kids again into those small groups. CISA came in, helped out with some intervention ideas. Our tier 1, that is where all students are getting their core instruction. Tier 2 is where they start meeting with title. This is also where they would be working with their teachers individually or in a small group setting. Again, that's kind of where those bubble kids start falling in, where we want to really hone in on them. And then tier 3 is kind of our specialized instruction or otherwise SPED. It can be a more intensive instruction with either title or teacher as well if needed. And all students do receive time throughout their ELA or the math block to get individualized or group instruction. Here's our action plan moving forward. All right. So one of the big things that we've kind of identified is we need to start working on pre-teaching concepts so that we're building that background knowledge in vocabulary or whatever it may be for when the students are doing their reading. That's one of the areas that we've been noticing that we don't feel we're doing quite enough with to help them with that reading. We need to review our common formative assessments to make sure that they're actually assessing what it is that we need the students to know, and also using that data to inform us what we need to reteach or help the students more with. We need to continue to promote at-home reading. We know that it's been research that promoting that is going to help our students continue to read better. Recognize student achievements. We're going to continue to work on differentiation time during our core block. And we also know that we need to work on EduType so that it progresses to help out in the middle school and high school for tests later on as they're coming up. So kind of ask your question, that 40%, like I said, some of the big things that we've noticed is kids don't have some of that background knowledge when we go into reading. whether it's, they don't know their phonemic awareness, they don't know letters, whatever it may be. Making sure we're teaching those, getting those, we're also teaching background knowledge so that when they have to answer questions, they're able to do so.
Starting to look at the middle school test results. Again, looking at the A rating, this is the percent of students below the 30th percentile. In the middle school, it stays pretty even. You know, a number of reasons for that. Part of it is we have some students by the time they reach middle school that just don't care about testing. It happens more at the middle school than the elementary, but I know that's not the only reason. And Gina, as I'm rambling through, feel free to jump in anywhere you'd like to. So it's, you know, it stays even. Obviously, we would like to see those numbers going down. Those students that are struggling are working with our title teachers. They're getting that individual or very small group instruction. They're showing growth for the most part. They just aren't getting the number of students down below that number that we would like to. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the action steps when we get a little bit further down this presentation. Gina, anything you want to add on that?
Just that in some of those testing columns, some of the students didn't take the test at the beginning of the year, and they took it at the end of the year. So we had some new ones come in, or we had, for some reason, the kids were asked to take their class, took the test, so they weren't involved, or included in the first set, but in the last set.
And then looking at our math scores, again, very similar trends in our math as we're seeing in the reading, where we're staying pretty level instead of having that number going down throughout the end of the year. It's pretty typical in the middle school to kind of see that swing where at the beginning of the year, then they get better in the middle, and then they kind of, that's, we're trying to test them in the spring, especially in the 8th grade, they are really not into it.
Were we short of math teacher in middle school?
We were in 7th and 8th grade. 7th and 8th grade didn't have the full 90 minutes. They didn't have the full 90 minutes with a teacher.
They were going to the library.
Yeah, so in 7th and 8th grade this year, they have a 90-minute block, so they would spend 45 minutes with the teacher, and the other 45 minutes is when they were doing more of an online program in the library, at least that's what they were supposed to be doing, but not being with an actual math teacher in there. Some took it very seriously, probably the vast majority did not. So that was not helpful for our 7th and 8th graders.
What do you mean by they're not into it?
They've come to the realization, especially 8th grade fast bridge testing, for the most part, means nothing to them. There's nothing holding them accountable to actually trying. You'll have a number of kids that they just try to get through the test as fast as they can. You know, some kids will really take it seriously and they'll take 45 minutes to an hour or whatever it is. And some of those kids are done in 10 minutes. So it's really hard to find anything that will motivate a middle school student if they really don't want to do standardized testing.
So, I'm gonna ask a tough question. Who do we as a board hold accountable to help motivate those kids?
It's something that we have, I can't answer that part of the question, but I can tell you what we have trimesterly meetings where we're discussing student data, where we're talking about, okay, why are these kids not trending in the directions we want to? And it's myself and Gina's involved in those, and we have all the grade level teachers involved in those. We're all trying to brainstorm ways to motivate these kids and help these kids. Because if we look at our fast bridge data, yeah, it's not trending the way we want to, but we look at the data that we get from our ELA curriculum that we have that does similar types of tests, but not exactly the same. Is that an accurate way of putting it, Gina? Okay. Gina's gone more in depth with some of that curriculum pieces I have. And in those settings, their scores are trending in the right direction. So why is our fast bridge, the question becomes, why is our fast bridge data not trending in the same direction as what we're getting out of the information that we're getting directly from the curriculum that we're teaching?
Yeah, I mean, if it was 1, 2, 10, pick a number of kids, then I would say maybe those kids aren't into it. But when it's the bulk of the class, I think you got a bigger problem than those kids aren't into it.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and we're looking into all those things. Like I said, our Praise data looks worse than what from my perspectives, what their assessment data is within that system. Those show improvement in some kids that aren't showing it on the Fast Bridge test.
Yeah.
So we're trying to triangulate that data to see where they're actually at.
That's a much better answer. I get real hung up on it
Yeah.
when this is the problem and it's because the kids.
Yeah, no, and I know it's not just.
It's your job to make
Yeah.
the kids into it.
Absolutely, and we're trying to come up with everything that we can to do that. And I can speak from my own personal perspective. I'm talking to my own son, he's not one of the kids represented in the draft, but I saw his scores go down throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
So, and talking to him and his friends, trying to get some of that anecdotal data from them as well. That's why I know that's part of it, but I know that's not the whole thing. So we are looking at, it's always hard when you're looking at one piece of data.
Mhm.
So that's why we try to use the stuff from my perspectives and this and what the teachers are seeing in class. And the data meetings are probably much more informative of what are we seeing. And then we can talk about, we have Johnny here who we know, okay, we know what his problems are at home right now, so we can see why his score may have gone down. Then we have Susie who, wow, we have no idea what's going on with Susie. This is a student we need to look more into. So we're looking at kids on that very individual level when we have those data meetings.
And sometimes kids that score really high, like just kids throughout the year, they were way up here in the 99th percentile. They would take the test as many times as we told them, and their numbers might have gone down, but where their standing was didn't go down. It was just the variable that they used to grade that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing poorly. Whereas his girls thought they went down, I think it was Michelle, she went down by 1 point. I thought she was gonna have a heart attack. I'm like, Michelle, you're okay. But that's something else you gotta take into consideration. Where were they on the percentile to start with? And if it did go down, was it a big deal, or was it the percentage dropped so greatly that you should be concerned, or?
There are some, the questions are hard for,
Yes.
like it's designed to not know the answer to everything. And sometimes they guess correctly, sometimes they don't. And if you're talking, like if they're at 28% or 28th percentile and they get 1 or 2 questions right, then that's drastically influenced versus getting those wrong.
Right.
Not 40%.
Yeah, and when we're going from 36 to 38%, we're, in our case, talking about one student. So.
Yeah.
But I truly understand your concerns, and they're concerns for me as well. So we're gonna continue to look at those individual students. Like I said, we have the action plan coming up here of things that we're gonna do with those kids.
I think the biggest concern is, when kids get into trouble with math and reading, it's not over in 1 year. It's not like they just get to start over next year, they're gonna be behind.
Mhm.
And it's very hard for them to catch up. So I mean, is there a way, I know you're gonna show us the plan, but is there a way to do some extra things with these kids? Because we're talking 40%, I mean, that's bad.
Yeah, and there is, I promise we're coming, we're getting there.
Okay.
And I added this slide in, a lot of this you've seen except for that line in the red, and I wanna say one thing right now. If you look at it compared to the last year's, I understand that it does not look good, but we do not know what this year's state data looks like. So it's just our data, we have nothing statewide to compare it to at this point. Those numbers don't come out until fall. But I just wanted to share with you, and I thank Mr. Gago for actually going through and hand computing our averages, because the state does not give those to us. We just get individual score reports for kids. So Mr. Gago actually went through and figured out our averages for us. But yes, they're lower than they were last year with that group of students. And again, the other weird thing about looking at ACT data, we're not looking at the same group of kids, how they're progressing. We're just seeing what last year's group did compared to this year's group. And they're obviously a different group of students. I've been trying to go back in to see if I can find their Aspire data from previous years to see where they were projected to be versus where they ended up. I haven't been able to drill down far enough into that to get individual score reports. So I'm hoping to have that at some point in the future for us to analyze, to say, are our students growing, or did they hit the mark on the ACT that they were projected to? So that was more of just an informative piece, because unfortunately, like I said, we have nothing to compare that to right now. And then our data and RTI plan, like I said, we meet with each grade level in the middle school to go over data. We do that each trimester. Sorry, Gina, did I miss anything on the rest of that? Okay. We group the students into small grouping based on needs. the students are really struggling, and it says, look down here a little farther, tier 2, they're going to be with Gina for reading. Tier 3, we're looking at more of that specialized instruction. CISA has helped us with some intervention ideas. Our middle school has 90-minute blocks for ELA, and was designed to have a 90-minute block in math, we had to improvise last year due to the staffing issue. So that 90-minute block is designed to have interventions right in the classroom. And we do have it for ELA. I know at times Gina is in some classrooms working directly with the kids in the room. Sometimes she has kids that she pulls out to work with in a small group or a one-on-one basis. And then she's tracking their progress as well. And that's another time where sometimes her data is showing a student progressing where that doesn't show up on the Fastbridge test. So that's another piece of that data that we factor into those conversations. And then our middle school does have after-school tutoring, and it's usually fairly well attended. There's always at least a good handful of students that are in there on any given day, and that's offered 2 days a week after school. Traditionally, Mrs. Kempen has been the one to stay there and working with students. And she does a very nice job with them to help them get a better understanding of the materials that they're working on. At the high school, we have a little bit less. We do have that 45 minutes built in daily for students to work with teachers that they want to work with, or teachers being able to choose students that they want to work with on homework completion, test makeup. The high school becomes very much more focused on the students passing their classes and earning their credits. We obviously know that there is some work that we need to do with helping kids continue to build skills. So we're not neglecting that, but the focus even for the kids typically become, hey, I want to make sure I pass this class. They're gaining knowledge, and we want to keep building those skills with them at the same time. And then we do offer, as Ms. Dunkel mentioned earlier, the after-school tutoring. It isn't well attended at the high school. Near the end of a trimester, when kids get to crunch time, it becomes typically a little bit more used. But overall, we wish more high schoolers would take advantage of that. So we do have a teacher in there. We typically have some of our higher level upperclassmen, then they're willing to help tutor as well. So the resources are there, more publicity of it, more advertising, more encouragement of students to get there is one of those things we'll be working on this fall as well. So our action plan, what are we going to be doing differently? A big one in our middle school is we're going to have a BAI, and that's down at the bottom in the more bolded letters. We're going to have a BAI for all the middle school students as well, so they will have the same, won't quite be 45 minutes, it's closer to 35 minutes of time to get some of that additional help they need where they're not getting pulled from an academic class, where we can do some of that pre-teaching of concepts, we can do some reteaching of things. Those types of things we can build into that BAI period. It won't be as free and open as what we have in the high school by design, but it'll still be a chance for kids to get help where they need it from, who they need it from. And looking more at math, looking, pre-teaching vocabulary and concepts, the use of formative assessments. If a kid doesn't get it the first time, it's not about when they get it, it's the fact that they get it. We want to make sure all the students are learning. So using a formative assessment, so the kids take it the first time, they struggle, we go back to that reteaching and let them take that test again, those things. We're getting a new curriculum in middle school math, which is going to align with our high school math. Mr. Goodis and Mr. Mellendorf were very excited about the curriculum they were using last year. So now we'll be taking that down to the middle school level as well. So they're very excited about having that continuous 6 through 12 curriculum in the math. Again, going back to some more small group and student collaboration, which is what that new curriculum is designed to do, and continuing to use that Freckle software that they were using this year. As we mentioned, our 7th and 8th graders were unfortunately more on their own to use it. But with the plan of going back to those longer blocks, it'll be one of those intervention pieces that we can use right in the classroom with the teacher there to help students when they need it. And then as far as ELA goes, making sure we'll have two new ELA teachers in the middle school, one new ELA teacher in the high school, making sure we're using all our new curriculum with fidelity. We have, again, the same thing there. We have a cohesive 6-12 program. Working on some non-negotiables for ELA class structure where we get more student collaboration, get more reading conferences. And again, like the elementary school, just promoting that joy of reading and finding ways to encourage kids to read on their own. Big thing, I hear from students is, well, I don't want to read what somebody's telling me to read. Okay, let's find ways to allow them to read what they want, but then still hold them accountable to it and make sure they're understanding of the reading. And then the last thing we have on there is making sure we're engaging students in things that are real life things, the college and career readiness teams, things that are helping prepare them for what they're going to do after high school. Hopefully I answered all the questions that everybody had for that. Okay. I told you they were there. Let me get. Oh, the high school one. All right. The BAI for high school students, that's not really a new thing, but again, we're always looking to tweak that and restructure that a little bit. Engaging students in that real life things. We have the new math curriculum, which we started this year, ELA curriculum. We had some last year. We increased that to our upper levels. And then we'll be having some math students learning virtually this year. So making sure that we're supporting those students by having an adult in the room who understands math, finding time for them to meet with those virtual teachers when needed, and using other teachers to help support them, either during VAI or other times during the day. So we're just not leaving those students out there on an island, just with a virtual teacher. We're making sure that we're supporting them with an adult in our building.
Okay, so another thing that we know that affects academic performance is attendance. So we wanted to add a little bit of information in this presentation about how we're doing with attendance. This first slide is really just the basics of how we mark our attendance. A student is given 10 allowable attendance issues for the year. After that, they become unexcused. So, and it kind of shows a little bit about how we mark our attendance, but 10 is our number. And then, if you go to the next slide, we have a little bit more data at each of the buildings about how we're doing with our attendance rates. So we'll start with the elementary.
I have a question. What is like a prearranged?
Prearranged would be considered an excused absence until it goes over the 10.
Over the 10,
Which becomes an unexcused.
But if it gets marked unexcused, what happens with that? Just because it's unexcused is what's happening.
So the state actually has it separated out into unexcused and excused, and you get so many per semester. It's more or less bookkeeping. I will say, I can kind of go into mine real quick here, and that might help kind of with you.
Well, I understand the difference in I'm here talking for some years.
Yeah.
But what these kids we have tons of kids over the years that are unexcused, but nothing really becomes of it. There's no push to get them into school kind of thing.
Aren't they truant?
Well, they're supposed to be.
Correct.
You have to keep a truancy file.
So if they're unexcused, if they hit 11,
Well, so,
The 11th day, they're truant.
correct. And then you file through, so with the county.
The 11th day, they would technically be unexcused, and that would be their first, if they didn't have any others, their first unexcused absence.
Then they get 4 of those.
Yeah, correct. Now, the 5th unexcused is when they're true.
Another full day absence, correct?
It could be even just one, if you're unexcused for one period of a day, according to the state, that partial or full counts as a full day. So if a student skips one class during the day, that counts as a full day unexcused, right, in the state size.
So one of the things that I'll say on our attendance is, or at the elementary that we've done is, we might have been a little bit more strict than what the state asked. So the state criteria is 10% of the school year, which is 17 days. So if you look at that, that means we have 8.5% of our students that are considered chronically absent. What we did is we went more or less just strictly off of 10 days of being chronically absent. And so we sent the letters at much earlier times at 3, 5, 7, and then on 10, we were filing already. So with that criteria, we had 24.7% of our students considered chronically absent. But on our state report card, it's gonna show more at 8.5%. So we were a little bit more strict with it in hopes that we were being proactive to get students here sooner.
Do you think that you were successful then, so using your 10?
I would say yes, considering in the eyes of the state, we only had 8.5% of our students really chronically absent. So I think it ended up being, it was like 15 kids maybe. Still more than what we would like, but
Because you would like to see that continue, right? And then hold that threshold.
well, we'll kind of get into, we gotta have a county-wide meeting and we'll kind of get into, we'll kind of take that part over, what the progression will be.
So what's the 24.7?
That's our criteria. We said, like, just in the elementary, we said if they had 10 absences, regardless.
Excused or unexcused, just 10
Excused,
absences.
unexcused, just 10 absences. If they had 10 or more absences, we had 24.7%. Now, in the state's eyes, that isn't even what it would be considered, but that's what we considered, so that we were trying to be a little bit more proactive to get them here sooner.
Basically knock 5 days off of each.
Yes.
student.
So are you saying 1 in 4 every week is gone? 1 student in 4?
I can pull up the number while he goes on, I have it if you want, but,
Which one worked?
yeah. I'm just saying I can get like, actually,
So if we go to like the middle school attendance data, looking at the 10 days. So, in 2022, so I did 2022 compared to 2023. Took out the COVID excuses or absences on there because we were advised not to count that against students. So for 2022 and 2023, if they were playing against COVID or out for COVID, that's not included. So 2022, 10 days middle school is 39.3% of students were at 10 plus days. 2023, it was 19.4% of students missed 10 plus days. Yeah, and then the actual numbers are in there, so. Yeah. And then middle school, the 17 days, it was 17 students and 9 students. So 2022 is 9.8% of students missed 17 plus days. 2023 is 5.4% of the students. And then high school, it was 45.8% of the students missed 10 days in 2022, down to 34.3 in 2023. And then 17 days was 18.8% of students in 2022 and 7.6% in 2023. I would say the one thing, in drilling down, just curious looking at the data a little bit, the 10 plus days, I mean, there's quite a few students, they have no academic difficulties in school. And part of it looks like families are more willing to take their vacations during the year, particularly those are going to go. We've had students that miss 5 to 6, 7 days for the excused absences on family trips. So part of it has been educating families. One of the things in looking at the data and looking back on the year, we have meetings, or we schedule meetings. This year, we had more parents show up than we have in the past, I would say, in terms of scheduling the truancy meetings to discuss why is your child missing school. And I think the meetings are very beneficial. So in one case, the dad showed up, mom did not show up. Dad said, I had no idea he was missing this much school. I'm assuming it's when he stayed with his mom. So then we kind of looked at the data. But then after that, that student didn't miss any more days the rest of the year. So what we'd like to do, part of the action plan would be moving the meetings up. So like Nate was talking about, we started sending letters earlier, but I think moving even the meetings up. One of the meetings we had pertaining to attendance, the dad was very grateful and thankful that we were willing to work with him and his child in terms of an issue that was going on that was causing the child to miss school. So I think just moving those meetings up, I think will reduce that even further going forward as well. So,
Moving it up to what?
that's what we'll have to decide kind of as a team, and I mean, I would say we want to move it up to probably 5 or 7 days would be even better yet. Just the excused absences, so when they get 5.
Excuse absences.
Yeah, when they're at, or maybe just a combination of them, just moving it up and figuring out why is your child missing school. So, and I think we have a form that we walk them through to figure out why are you missing school? Is it a teacher issue? Is it a transportation issue? Is it a bullying issue? Is it anxiety, depression? A lot of different things that go into that, and usually they're pretty forthcoming when the parent and student both show up. We can usually kind of get to the bottom of it and help come up with some sort of plan that helps to negate the attendance issues from there, so.
So how are you alerted when kids start to get into trouble with that? Who's monitoring that? Like, how do you know?
What we've been doing is it's, like at our building, it's been running reports and trying to run the reports as often as I can to do that. But that's what we're gonna do is we looked at revising that process to make it a lot less cumbersome moving forward for whoever is doing that, so. Right now, one of the things we looked at doing even is, we think we have it set up so that we can run automatic reports as well as automatic letters that will get emailed to parents within Skyward, but we can't really fully test it until we're in school. But right now, it seems like we have it working, so I guess we'll find out when school hits, but that would save a lot of time as well. It is a very extensive process, because right now it's all kept in, you have to run the report and then basically transfer it over to like a Google Sheet, and so. And then I guess the last slide, I don't know if we went over that, the action plan. So educating parents and families on the importance of being in school would be one. Identifying the root cause of students missing school, which I talked about. Creating an attendance plan. So some of the kids, I've already got a sheet of the kids that this year were in that, looking at the attendance data. I think I used the number 12 because that starts to put them on track to be truant. All those kids, and then sending out a letter this summer that we want to have a meeting before school even starts, ideally with the families to figure out what's going on, what can we do to assist you and support you getting your kid here. Revised workflow, like we just talked about, making it more streamlined, meeting with parents earlier in the process to make them part of the team, so it's not so much a us versus you thing, it's we want to work on this together and figure it out. And then schedule August parent and student meetings for identified students from the previous year. Celebrate good attendance, education at open house and in PBIS newsletters. And then we have a countywide truancy plan with all the county schools in August to come up with what the plan is going to look like for everybody and try and build consensus around that. So we started working on that a little bit, and then we had principals on either side of us at the middle high school levels that are no longer in those buildings. So
Will we get an update on that?
yeah, I would assume that, I think it's early August is the meeting, right? And then the August board meeting will lay it all out for it. Any other questions?
I make a motion to move to enter into executive session for considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of a public employee.
Okay. So moved as presented. I'll second it. Roll call. Yeah, they're good. Roll call.
Nancy Burmeister?
Yes.
Lori Duval? Yes. Justin Matthews?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
Gotta hit it square. There you go.
Yes.
Move to approve the consent agenda. Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
I need a motion.
Second. Right. All in favor? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Oh, discussion. First of all, you got to ask for a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna go separate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, you can do all of the approved. Yeah, go ahead.
separate. Move to approve Troy Gago as the Ladysmith elementary principal.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Move to approve. Move to approve Julie Olson as the LMHS state custodian.
Discussion?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make mistakes all the time. Motion carried.
Okay. Move to approve Chase Goodis as high school math teacher.
Second. Approved. Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve Erin Breitenfeld as the Ladysmith High School science teacher.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Move to approve.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry,
That's all right. It's fun.
it's getting late. Move to approve Bruce Gunderson as the LMHS evening custodian. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, move to approve the resolution of Nathan Steinmetz.
No.
Second. Any discussion?
What happens if we oppose it? Well, then Trent loses his job.
We can already approved that, though, you get two principals, I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll miss you.
Well, Michelle.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Move to approve resignations of Nathan Steinmetz, Cheryl,
We did that.
Or you can do them all.
oh,
We're
sorry,
gonna do-
Cheryl
Oh, you're gonna do
Smith,
them all? Okay, you can
Karina
do that.
Culver, Katrina Rapp, Brian Rogers, and Jessica Larson.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the preliminary budget.
Second.
Any discussion? No, all in favor, did a good job, though. Yes.
Yeah, I guess the one discussion point they had, but those people did a great job at explaining everything and making sure that we all understand it. And, I mean,
I still don't know. No,
yes,
I still
Just
got.
the important.
I guess they can call you up.
yeah, yeah. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the SRO officer for 2023-24 school year.
Second.
Discussion? I know both, I know, Kevin and Doug, and I'm glad to get this. I know, I am so glad.
Jen, it's a special thanks to you, I know you can.
Yeah, if we couldn't have found them, I would have dug it up in the backyard. What a great idea.
I think the people that we put in place on that
to approve the scoreboard purchases with competitive quotes, football, baseball, and softball.
So,
Second. Any discussion? And we named the one, right?
yeah, you have to name the one.
That's the.
So we're gonna put that in the minutes.
Okay.
Chippewa Valley.
So Chippewa Valley or Daktronics.
You want to go to Chippewa Valley?
And the Chippewa Valley one is cheaper. And it's a little bit more local. And the code is in there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So I don't need to put the name in these minutes.
You do. So what Chippewa Valley, so they approved the Chippewa Valley Sporting Goods quote.
And then that's gonna be the name on the.
No, that's the vendor.
Oh,
okay, that's the
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to approve their contract for 23-24 school year.
Any discussion? Other than,
We need a
I like
Should we have a second first, though? We need a second.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, and in here, you'll see the contract is for a full year rather than 6 months, so that's why it appears to be double, because it's the full year. And, yeah, not only do you like the explanation she gives to the board, we in the district office really appreciate the leadership that they supply us on a weekly basis. They're great to work with.
yeah, I think things are too complicated now if you don't have a professional in your neck of business.
Yeah. There's so many different
It's too much going on.
finance laws and tax laws and a million other things that.
And we only have one morning a week. So it's not like we're, overextending. It's one morning a week. And that's just about perfect. We start our day with a meeting, and we're all virtual, and we keep a Google Doc with everything that we want to talk about. We start our day with a meeting, and then they're available for the remainder of the morning. That takes a good hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and then they're available for the remainder of the morning to work individually with anybody that needs it on their team, and to kind of work on budgets behind the scenes and things like that.
Do you guys feel like you understand the numbers better since we've been using this group? Like, they help?
Yeah, they're very easy to talk to, as we found out tonight, and no question is stupid, it's just, they're wonderful to work with and explain it very, very well. Every question Jeff asked, you said was a very good question.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure you guys are sitting there thinking, oh, what a dumb question.
Well,
No.
Oh, they're always so happy.
But as far as like the numbers in the blue book and stuff like that, those make sense to you now with their guidance.
All in favor?
I-
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve administrative contract.
Make a motion to table the discussion.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion?
So we're voting on table right now, right?
And we'll vote to table it until the special, we'll have to designate a special meeting. Laura, I believe those have to be done before beginning of fiscal year,
Yes,
so we're gonna have to do a special meeting next week.
I'm suggesting Monday or Wednesday of next week.
Everybody check your calendars.
Monday will know. Yeah.
Softball going on there.
We're talking this coming Monday.
Yes.
I mean, it could be Tuesday too, I just figured there's less going on Monday and Wednesday.
Monday can't be good.
Yeah, Tuesday would work best for me, I don't know, but,
Any day works for me, right?
oh yeah, every day's a Saturday for
Every day Saturday.
You too.
You're just jealous.
I am.
Is it enough time?
We're done. We need to be efficient with this one.
Wait, are we saying Tuesday?
Does that work for everyone? Tuesday, June 27th.
So it's a
5:30.
table to motion, I'm sorry, it's a motion to table this until the Tuesday, the June 27th. Is that what the motion was? Okay. June 27th. Okay, and Laura, you seconded?
Yes.
Are we doing it here? And like this?
All in favor?
Alright.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the speech pathologist, excuse me, move to approve the speech therapist contract.
Any discussion?
Is
This is our virtual option. We have a full-time in-person and a full-time virtual.
So, for the moment, then we've got to listen to what the students are doing. And then we've got to have the, what do we got, full time? I'm not trying to get my wife in anything. You know she's a speech therapist.
We want a full-time speech therapist.
I'm not trying to do that, I'm just questioning.
Yeah,
Because-
we want it in person. We've posted, we don't have.
Do you post it on the weekend? Let's see, a speech therapist, when we see that. There's speech therapist, like my wife is a nursing home speech therapist.
And she.
She wouldn't know how we-
Yeah, why doesn't she come out here?
Well, she wouldn't do it because she likes her job right now. I mean, it's, I'm just,
We have such a shortage that I feel like,
well, I'm aware of the
Yeah.
service, but I think that there are a lot of speech therapists that, because I know them, because I hear about them all the time. For a 10-month job, and I don't know what they get paid compared to what we're contracted now, because, I mean, obviously, we don't pay the different benefits, so it's not, I'm gonna say that that's the same wage that they would get. It might go, but you can't, and if we can, it wouldn't, I don't know if they would know. Just throwing it out there.
right, I know.
I'm just,
I know.
I mean, this is only a 1 year, this is a nice way to go, because you're not obligated long-term or anything like that. Something to think about.
I know Kelly does a really good job, like promoting and looking, shading the trees.
Yeah.
And you know what, this speech therapist, we used her last year too. She does a great job.
Yeah, no, I'm not questioning it.
But yeah, it's a 1 year thing and we'll keep looking for a real person.
Yeah. So, I mean,
And
I don't know,
maybe we'll expand our search options
yeah,
and try something more than we can. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, put it in the paper.
Could do, put it in the paper.
Put it in the paper.
well, you can put it in the clear.
You could do Indeed.
I don't see any speech therapists.
Professional.
Yeah, but I just said that.
Did we have a second?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying that because,
No, I'm not quite sure what you got.
well, I meant.
I'll have to listen to it again tomorrow.
Okay, what speech therapist down in Madison is gonna read the Ladysmith News?
I have a friend who's a speech therapist at Madison School.
Well,
She might see it.
sorry about that, but that was not, I didn't mean that as a doctor. I was just thinking,
I'm not taking it personally.
sorry about that. Gotta be careful with my language there.
I'm not looking around for an editor job somewhere else.
There was a saying
I'm not gonna write that line
I
this
only
week.
had one comment about that. Years ago, there was something going on, Luke, and I was talking to somebody, and I said, you know what? And I don't think they pissed you off, but I said, never piss off somebody that buys things by the drum.
We find by the tanker.
Yeah, I know. All in favor?
But, so the fees, I guess I didn't even see that was in there, but is it $88,000 for the year? How is that is that comparable to the salary of a real person? Or, I mean, are we
It
paying,
all depends on how many years of experience the real person has.
I'm just, I guess, I don't know enough about what the cost for an online speech therapist is. That seems like a salary to me.
But they don't get any benefit from health insurance or anything like that.
That's what I'm asking.
But we also gotta have, because it's virtual, we gotta have an age there, right? So we
Right.
gotta pay there.
You've got that cost too.
That's all part of that fee there.
What's that?
That's
No,
part of
we-
the fee to have it, and you sit there as well.
No, that's additional
We
cost.
provide the,
Yeah, it's not cheap.
A speech therapist is a 6-year degree, now, it's not a 4-year degree.
right.
6 years.
Plus, if you had someone on site, it would be about 45%.
Well, I'm not sure what we're paying now for speech therapists. Is it more or less than that? I mean, I'm not looking for any numbers, but is it higher, is it more or less than,
For the actual salary without benefits,
well, the all
It's-
in price? What the
yeah,
cost
for
is?
the actual salary without benefits, with the in-person is a little less than that.
But you gotta figure,
But even with benefits, how much, what's the cost?
It's more than that.
it's more than that.
I understand that, but like
How much more?
5,000, 10,000, 100,000?
No, not 100,000, not 5,000.
That's still a big window.
Yeah, I know, you're really,
Well, what would be the salary?
I would say, or it all depends on how much experience they have.
Yeah,
We
but
only
just,
have
if
one
you were looking
person,
for
so I'm kind
someone,
of throwing out their
what would be the
salary.
salary?
So,
Seven.
It's on here.
yeah.
Well, I know that.
No,
Hey, hey, you
is Kelly the other one?
No.
No.
got Corey.
Corey, well, isn't hers on here too? Oh, no, hers is.
Is that on the DPI website? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is it.
Anyway, look that up and
Yeah.
45%.
Yeah.
Like probably 120, let's say.
Yeah.
It depends,
I'm just,
it
I mean,
depends on if it's
understand.
gonna be my wife or not, and how much it's.
No, I mean, I understand this is what it is. I'm just,
Anywhere from 59 to 124,000. We got Google.
That's yeah.
So if you wanna go back to school. Are we ready? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve offering Hope contract.
Second.
Any discussion?
so this is our OT with Heidi Solikov. We've been working with her, contracting with her OT for several years. There's nothing different about this contract.
Any more discussion? We have a second. All in favor?
But
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the academic standard for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Any discussion?
This is a basic approval that we do in June or July every year. There's not a whole lot of changes at all. Basically, you're approving that we're using Wisconsin state standards. It has to be posted on our website. For science, we're using Wisconsin state standards and Next Gen Science. And then all of the information that parents need to have about what are the schools in your district? Do you have a private school? Do you have a virtual school? So everything about ECCP, early college program, Start College Now. So it's just kind of a general posting that you approve. We put it on our website and it lives there for the year and then we update it each year.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to approve the WIAA membership renewal for the 2023-24 school year at no cost to the district as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah, I would just try to go against that one just because I'd like to see WIA change their.
Oh,
You have one thing
you are opposing.
on the WIA thing here. I don't know why it's displayed this way, but this is how it prints out when you sign it. It doesn't have boys wrestling underneath boys sports. The original document does, so I don't know if it got cut off or what happened there, but just want to make sure you sign one that has boys wrestling added on.
Oh,
It's on there.
Okay.
That's very nice.
That's, on the right one is girls wrestling.
Oh.
So in case we offer girls wrestling, we now have the option to add that as a WIA sport, but on the other side, it should be boys wrestling.
We'll just put the boys in with girls.
Did you sign that?
Like-
Oh, you did, then put it back.
So I think the one that we gave had an option, I just want to check that to be sure.
I'm not gonna bring that in.
No, I got it right here.
I signed,
Yeah, you did.
I signed one.
I didn't sign it.
No, it's
Does
not
not
on there.
Even on the paper version, it's
That's
not.
very weird. Okay, we can just print a new one as long as you approve.
Or can we just
Well, this
add,
is the one that I printed this off.
Okay.
Unless you can,
can't we just handwrite in wrestling?
We should probably get the one where you actually, it's typed on there.
We'll print one out, but as long as you approve it with wrestling, is that fine? And then we can print it and.
then maybe at the next meeting, we'll have to
Yeah.
sign that one.
Yeah.
That sounds okay.
Okay.
Yes, upcoming meeting dates.
Okay.
So now we have,
The next Tuesday, February, and then July.
July 19th, August 16th.
And June, what's the date on that one?
27.
27.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Nancy second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody that's crazy enough to oppose?
Do what you got.
Hey.